As we shared with you at the beginning of the newscast, a federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from ending that program, DACA.
That was not the only news on immigration today. KCAL9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us with another big development. Dave?
A fascinating exercise, a televised, really presidential meeting with senators and Congress members. It was great to watch. President Trump headlined a nearly hour-long televised meeting with Senate and congressional leaders on immigration issues, perhaps intended to show that he is fit to be president. And tonight, the White House is suggesting it is open to comprehensive immigration reform. After several days where the news cycle was dominated by a new book, which raised questions about chaos inside the White House and about President Trump's fitness to be holding office, the president allowed news cameras to shoot for nearly an hour Tuesday while he met with and negotiated with senators and Congress members from both parties on immigration issues.
This should be a bipartisan bill. This should be a bill of love. Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that.
We're all going to have to give a little, and I'll be the first one willing to.
With California voices playing a major role, Republicans zeroed in on 4 priorities: border security, ending the visa lottery, limiting immigration based on family ties, and DACA, the Obama-era program that will be ending soon unless action is taken to extend it, a program that provided legal status to undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. California Senator Dianne Feinstein suggested to the president that the first order of business should be passing a law that would deal only with DACA.
What about a clean DACA bill now, with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform?
For a moment, it sounded like President Trump liked the idea.
We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
But House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy from Bakersfield reminded the president that he was demanding that there must be conditions for passing DACA, like money to build a border wall and tougher border security, as well as tighter restrictions on who can legally immigrate to the U.S. and who can't.
Mr. President, you need to be clear, though. I think what Senator Feinstein's asking here, when we talk about just DACA, we don't want to be back here 2 years later. You have to have security, as the Secretary would tell you.
But I think that's what she's saying.
I think she's saying something different. I'm thinking you're saying DACA without security.
Some DACA recipients, like Melody Klingenfuss, a statewide organizer with Churla's California Dream Network, say they don't trust President Trump to have their best interest at heart.
We will not tolerate to be bargaining chips in exchange for a Clean Dream Act. We will not stand for a bill that keeps separating our communities and keeps being divisive to our immigrant families. So his words today do not surprise me. I think it just goes to show again that this administration is a roller coaster, and we do not trust him.
Back at the White House, President Trump was moving on to phase 2 of his immigration vision, a comprehensive immigration bill.
If we do this properly, DACA, you're not so far away from comprehensive immigration reform. And if you want to take it that further step, I'll take the heat. I don't care.
But the prospect of comprehensive immigration reform that would likely include a pathway to citizenship for 11 million undocumented immigrants already living and working in the U.S. is not being welcomed by some advocates for tougher enforcement of existing laws.
The president ran on a no amnesty platform, whatever he calls it, if it extends legal benefits to 11 or 12 million people who are in the country illegally, that would certainly constitute amnesty. And, you know, if the president thinks that he can somehow get the people who have been opposing amnesty to support it simply because he's decided he supports it, he's going to be in for some tough sledding there.
Now, again, adding to the drama at the White House today, a federal judge in San Francisco, as we reported just a few minutes ago, this evening has ruled that the DACA program, which protects nearly 700,000 immigrants, cannot be shut down by President Trump while legal challenges to the Trump order are still pending. If and when that program does end, those immigrants could then be at risk of deportation without the DACA protections. Lena, back to you.